Hey, hi, hello everyone. I am Lolise and welcome back to my channel. And this is my series Overly Produced, where we talk about reality TV and some scripted reality stuff. Today is going to be more of like an overly produced book club of sorts because I read the book. Cop Without a Badge, the infamous book featured on season 1 of Real Housewives of New Jersey, becoming kind of one of the main storylines, turning the women on castmate Danielle Staub as they felt like they didn't really know her based on what they read from the book, which, yeah, if I was these women and then I read this book and read about what she did, I would probably be very alarmed and want to keep my distance as well. The climax of this being the dinner party from hell where Teresa did her infamous table flip in frustration of what Danielle was saying. It was legendary and it put New Jersey housewives on the map. The women do discuss a little bit about what is in the book, but overall we don't really get much. And over the years, I have wondered what is in this infamous book. So I decided to get the book for myself and see what all the hubbub was about. And I mean, I actually just got it off of Amazon. It was pretty cheap. I think I only paid $6 for it. I did not think about going to my local library though, like Caroline Manzo did, which I should have just did that in the first place because I love the library and you can get so much from the library. And this is just a non-official PSA to please support your local library, utilize it, donate money, because libraries are more than just buildings with books. They are communities that build around and they help support our communities too. So, side note, go to the library. Anyway, let's get back to the book and Danielle's alleged past. So, Cop Without a Badge, The Extraordinary Undercover Life of Kevin Maher was written by Charles Kipp in 1995. So, from now on, I'm just going to refer to it as the book because saying the title constantly is just like a little too much to say repeatedly throughout the video. The book follows the apparent real-life story of Kevin Maher, who was a juvenile delinquent turned informant for the mostly federal government, FBI, DEA, and probably some other local agencies too, like maybe the local PD and stuff. I can't really recall. Now, I did read the entire book, and I have to say, some of the things that he did in life are just absolute insanity to me. I can't imagine that somebody actually enjoys living life like this, but to each their own. I'm not going to talk too much about like the entirety of the book because this video is really just about what the book says about Miss Danielle Staub. So Danielle does not enter the scene in the book until like chapter 15. At this point, Maher is married and he is an informant for the feds. Which feds, I do not actually remember. It could be multiple feds at this point. I don't know. He has been doing this for a long time. This all stems from an arrest for auto theft when he was 17 years old. Maher is paid for his work, and that combined with his actual day job affords him a lot of luxuries like nice cars with massive upgrades, which also in turn help him get in with big-time Coca-Cola dealers because this was the 1980s. I think he enjoyed all of this because he does get to play cop and he gets to feel like he's in control and he gets to do all this crazy stuff while, you know, under the guise of it being for the work. And he's just crazy. I honestly just think Maher is crazy. He's somebody who craves life in the fast lane and because it makes him feel important. Plus, it's an excuse for him to engage in all this illegal activity and behavior. Like I said earlier, I'm not gonna dive like too deep into everything that this book has because honestly, if it were not for the fact that Danielle was even mentioned in this book, I probably wouldn't be reading this book because I wouldn't even know that this book exists. We're here for Danielle, y'all. So after 14 chapters of complete insanity that is Maher's life, we finally get to meet the equally insane Danielle, whose name at the time was Beverly Merrill. I don't know what I'm going to call her throughout this entire video. Maybe just Beverly for the most part. During this time, Maher was playing Miami Vice and he was rolling on drug dealers in Miami, living the high life of drugs because yes, he totally got hooked on them while he was trying to roll on them at the same time. But I also don't think that's super uncommon for undercover people to accidentally on purpose sort of kind of get addicted to things. The fast cars and the available women, that's all just like a big big ego drive for him. And this is all while he has a wife and son at home. And now I do want to share a little bit about his marriage, because from the outside, they probably look like a very mild-mannered family of a husband and wife and a son, but Maher actually met his wife Beth through a man in prison. Beth's husband at the time was in prison because he was a hitman and he was on trial for murder. A mutual friend introduced Maher to Beth, and her husband asked that when Maher got out, to take care of her while he was still in the joint. Beth was also staying with another woman named Alice, who Alice was the wife of the man that introduced Maher to Beth. And this man, I can't remember his name, but he hated his wife Alice. He hated her so much that he even asked Maher to kill her when he got out. Eventually, Beth and Maher lived with Alice for a while, and then they eventually became a couple and they moved out with Beth's son, whose father is the hitman in prison right now. Not Maher. Maher is not this kid's father. Sometime later, Beth and Maher actually had to testify in court against this guy, because when this guy got out, he did actually kill his wife. And Maher had to testify that this man asked him on multiple occasions to kill his wife for him. Maher and Beth lived like a married couple for a while, but she was still actually married to this hitman in prison. Eventually, they wanted to get a home loan, so she was able to file for divorce due to like abandonment, because he'd been in prison for many, many years at this point. And they were able to get married, and he was raising her son as his own. So yeah, they seem totally normal, but they have this like totally crazy history of how they met and what they do in life. Needless to say, even when life seemed boring for them, it actually wasn't. Towards the end of the marriage, Maher was doing a lot of Coca-Cola and cheating on Beth, while also accusing her of doing the same thing. The cheating, not the Coca-Cola. Anyway, back to Maher meeting Miss Beverly Merrill, aka Danielle Staub. At this point, he seemed like he was trying to live a normal life. Trying being the optimal word there. Trying to keep his normal day job. Trying to cut back on his substance abuse. Trying to make his marriage with Beth work. But he was still friends with all these big time dealers. And it was when he went off working in Miami, he actually met Beverly at a party. Maher arrived at the party, and it was like the typical saw her from across the room type situation deal. They introduce themselves, and apparently his sexcapades precedes him, as she tells him that she's heard all about him and the multiple women he's been with. But that didn't scare her off. And Maher's dealer friend immediately grabbed him and took him to the side to warn him about Miss Beverly. He tells Maher that she just got arrested and got out on bail for extortion, kidnapping, and possession. And this is apparently not all of the things that she was charged with. This all happened right before her appearance on the book. These specific actions were actually talked about a lot in Real Housewives of New Jersey, so much so that I actually thought this would be what they talked about more, that she would actually be doing these things in the book. No, she'd already done these things before she even was introduced to us in the story. It's crazy. She had just paid $10,000 bail, which I think when you are doing bail, it's really only 10% that you have to pay, but she was out on bail at that moment. This immediately interests Maher because he's crazy, and crazy likes crazy, and he always wants to turn people. He either wants to turn them into the police, or he wants to turn them onto his side. And with Beverly, he wants to turn her onto his side, get her to be one of like the good guys or something, continue playing Miami Vice with him. Maher asks for more details, so the friend tells him the following. Some rich kid from Buffalo owed a dealer $25,000. The kid kept saying he didn't have the money, but the DD knew the father was some rich old fuck, and the DD grabbed the kid, beat the shit out of him for about 3 days, didn't feed him, kept telling the kid that if his father didn't send him money, he was gonna kill him. Maher asked what all this had to do with Beverly. His friend said Beverly was there during all of it and even went to Western Union with her boyfriend to pick up the ransom, which is what then led to their arrest because the FBI just followed them back to their home. They're so stupid. Of course, none of this deterred Maher because, once again, he's crazy. And that night they actually slept together after a lot of substance use, of course. Maher said afterwards he held her in his arms and he thought, she has no morals, but she's a good person. Whatever the hell that means. Later that night, after his dealer friend stole his Porsche, he told Beverly that he actually worked for the FBI and he could help her with her case. And he said after that, he was all in with her. He was completely in love with her. Once Maher returned to New York from Miami, he went to his contact at the DEA and gave them all the information that he collected about the dealers. But then he brought up Beverly, and he brought up how instrumental she was in finding out key information about these dealers. After a couple trips back and forth between Miami and New York, one trip where he actually purchased 2 guns, one being an Uzi that he gave to his crazy dealer friend, he was able to get a deal for Beverly. Beverly pled guilty to extortion, which carried a 5-year prison sentence. She agreed, and she met with a probation officer before, and apparently due to their interactions, the parole officer recommended 2.5 years in prison and then 2.5 years in probation. In the end, though, the judge gave her 5 years of probation. And that's all. And then Maher was able to arrange for her to serve her probation in New Jersey, and he moved his mistress to be more close by him. And he was able to find her an apartment where she lived with 2 go-go dancers. Maybe that's what they call strippers back in the day. I don't know. Her roommates quickly got her a job at a club, which at first Maher thought was great, but then he went to the club and he got extremely jealous when he saw what was actually happening, which I don't know what he thought was going to happen when she's a dancer and they get her a job at a club. What else is she going to be doing? Keep in mind, too, that Maher is still married to Beth, and whenever he goes home to Beth, he's only thinking about Beverly. He's anxious about what she's doing, who she's with, was she sleeping with somebody. He became so convinced that she was sleeping with the owner of the strip club, especially because after maybe a month, she became the featured dancer, and the owner got her her own apartment, so she didn't have to live with those roommates anymore. She told Maher that the owner's friends owned the building and she got a really good deal, which Maher didn't believe at all. Eventually, he told her that she just had to quit her job. She said no, and then she left for work. He then followed her and pulled a gun on the bouncer and demanded everybody in the place hit the deck like he was going to rob the place. Totally, completely out of his mind. I'm sure he was on substances. Beverly then comes out and tells him not to call the police. He actually works for the government. He's an informant. And then he leaves. Later that night, they meet up and they laugh about the whole thing because it was funny to them because they're both crazy. And then they slept together because they're both crazy. And then apparently another situation like that happened where he brandished a gun. This time, however, he was arrested and his wife, Beth, was called. A cop told her the reason he was there was because of his stripper girlfriend, Beverly. Cat's out of the bag, but Beth still bailed him out. I cannot believe that. Beth, what the hell? They actually went home. And she just kind of brushed it under the rug after they did have a long conversation, but I guess they decided after that they were going to move forward and give their marriage one more try. I mean, come on, Beth, have some self-respect. Beth apparently was a very high-profile executive at multiple popular magazines at the time. What is she doing with this guy? Eventually, the Miami dealers that Maher's been rolling on start getting arrested. Maher hears after his last outburst at the club that Beverly had quit and moved, totally vanished. Not too long after all this, Maher then pulled a gun on his wife, Beth, and accused her of having an affair with her coworker, Richard, who he thought she'd been having an affair with forever. Beth then snuck out of the house and immediately got an emergency restraining order on him, forcing him to leave the home because he's psychotic. So the cops came and they informed him that he either had to leave the house voluntarily or they were going to arrest him. So Maher went to a friend's house, and it was while he was staying with this friend that he received a phone call from Beverly. And then without fail, he was back on the Beverly and Coca-Cola train. By 1988, Beverly and Maher got married. Except Maher's still married to his other wife, Beth. I don't even know how that happens. Like, I guess, you know, in the 80s, you don't have digital records, so it's not really easy to, like, look at things and to, like, cross-reference, but, like, geez, stuff was wild in the 80s. Beverly supported both of them by stripping, as Maher didn't have a normal day job at the time because he was actually in litigation on how he lost his previous job. Maher and Beverly did try to have a baby very quickly, although they were not successful, which, reading all the insanity of this book, is probably for the best at that point. I'm actually honestly surprised that Danielle's daughters turned out as amazing as they seem to be, considering their mom is so crazy. It was also at this time that Maher again started to become paranoid and jealous that Beverly was cheating on him, seeing somebody else. So Maher spent a lot of times at local bars drinking, and one night got arrested in a bar fight. So while his relationship with Beverly also began to grow, so did his rap sheet. During a heated argument where he again accused her of cheating, she ended up calling the cops on him and they kicked him out of the house. During this little interlude, he was able to finally divorce his wife Beth, so he was no longer a bigamist. And now he only had one wife to deal with instead of two. Maher then went to Beverly and he told her that he divorced Beth and now she was the only wife in his life, and she informed him she already spoke to a divorce attorney. He was crushed. He was set to have 2 divorces within like 3 months span. That's insane. After she dropped that bomb, they began to argue, and then, like always, after they argued, they ended up in bed together. But she did not let him move back in, and he still doesn't trust her. So he put an illegal tap on her phone to listen to all of her phone conversations. Very quickly, he heard a phone call with the neighbor from downstairs arranging a little quickie in the laundry room. And then the landlord also called and told her that he missed her and she should stop by before she goes to work. Maher then confronted her with these recordings and then just left, which I find insane. He literally pulls a gun on a bunch of people because she won't quit her job, but then when he actually confronts her with cheating, he doesn't do anything? I don't know if I totally believe it. I mean, him just leaving and not, like, having some crazy outburst and, like, brandishing a gun is, like, mildly impressive considering just how crazy this guy is. The next night, he went to the club that she was dancing at, and it was here that Beverly began using the name Danielle. He found out the name of a boyfriend she had. People at the club said they didn't even know that she was married. And he violently confronted the man with a gun, and the man confirmed he had been seeing Danielle before she and Maher split. About 2 months later, Danielle showed up to Maher's apartment and begged for him to take her back. Initially, he refused, but then he gave in. His insecurity and jealousy over Danielle got to him, though, and they moved to Pennsylvania into the Poconos Mountains, which is pretty isolated. He thought that would be enough. There, Danielle got another job at a strip club, same old song and dance, literally. And Maher then left her and went to friends in Arizona. And then Danielle is not ever mentioned again in this book. Her story with Maher in this sense ends. Maher eventually meets someone else who then also begins to become addicted to Coca-Cola and then begins to be addicted to the freebase version of that, which we call crack. And then she was killed by a serial killer, which is like crazy. Maher even tried to like help local PD and everything find the serial killer. But local PD didn't really trust him, and they actually thought maybe he did it. And through this, he was also publicly outed as being an informant, so he had to retire from the game, I guess. Now, there is a little update in the back of the book, and it does say that Beverly/Danielle moved to Wayne, New Jersey, which is where she lives during the Real Housewives. So now that you pretty much know all of Danielle's involvement from the book, let's talk about it. Now, I don't really know if it's because I like heard a lot about this on the show or if it's just that I am desensitized because the world is absolutely insane. But overall, I'm not really surprised for the most part of how crazy Danielle actually is in this book. Also because Maher's life was already wild before, and it just seems like being with Danielle just upped the ante. Danielle always said on the show that everything that he said in this book was lies except for 2 things. But she did marry Maher, and I'm going to assume that he wouldn't lie about being a bigamist. I do plan on reading Danielle's book and doing a review, so we'll get more into like her side of the story. However, According to records that were obtained by the website The Smoking Gun, which I don't know if that site actually is active anymore, but Danielle's version of events around her arrest are not what she claims, and they are more in line with what's in the book. It's also revealed that she used to, during like the arrest, I believe, she would go by the name Angela Minnelli, and I don't know if I can keep track of any more names for Danielle at this point. Meanwhile, I didn't even get a nickname until I was in my 20s, and this woman has so many different names. It's also confirmed in records by an FBI agent that he met Danielle, or Angela, when she was a working girl, i.e. a prostitute, and that was how she met her then boyfriend, who was at the time this big-time drug dealer. 2 years into her probation, her substance abuse counselor even recommended that her substance abuse program be extended due to the severity of her former lifestyle. But the Smoking Gun reported that the court filings that they found did not indicate what the judge did with this request. Kevin Maher now actually has a YouTube channel, and he updates a lot of stuff, but he's made a lot of videos about Danielle, claiming that she was the one who actually stole the drugs, not the rich kid that was kidnapped, and let the blame fall on him. But he's making these videos because he wants to publicly warn people to not fall victim to Danielle, and he even calls out she got married in like a later season because she like left and then came back, and I can't remember that guy's name. I want to call him Larry, but I don't think that's it. Lenny? I don't know. But he like actually warns this guy like to get far away from her. In his video, Maher claimed that she was not just a stripper, that Danielle was in fact an escort, and she worked for an agency that even had an ad in the phone book, in the... I don't know. Would it have been in the Yellow Pages? I guess it would have been in the Yellow Pages. And he said that actually what made that probation officer recommend the extended prison sentence was that, according to Maher, when she met with his probation officer, Danielle tried to sleep with the probation officer in hopes that she would get a better deal. Honey, you're already getting a great deal by sleeping with Maher. Let's not push it. He would also include recent social media videos of her and edit like fart noises into it. Real mature, dude. Maher seems to be the same as he's always been. He did admit that he would watch Housewives to see her and would talk crap about her ex-husband, Marty. That's his name, Marty. I wrote it down in my notes and it was later on. Maher actually even sued Danielle for $5 million in 2009 for defamation after she made claims that during their marriage that he arred her on broken glass, assaulted her with guns, and more horrible things. They did eventually settle out of court, but I believe he then sued the publisher of the book because he claimed that they published lies, which I haven't read yet, so we'll see what these lies are. But it's very much he said, she said kind of situation where both the people are completely off their rockers. But that is kind of my breakdown for Cop Without a Badge, specifically Danielle's involvement in the book. I actually, if you like true crime, I would recommend reading this. It is a wild ride, and when I started reading it, even though I really wanted to get to the Danielle part, I did enjoy reading all of it. Charles Kipps is a very good writer, and even on the back, it's weird I noticed this, but Chris North from Law & Order, but more specifically Mr. Big from Sex and the City, even wrote like a recommendation of this, and he said, a giant read in the tradition of true crime books, Cop Without a Badge sets the stage for awesome cinematic experience. And also reading this book, I'm kind of surprised that it's never been turned into a movie. Like, Hollywood is making all these stupid movies all the time and 8 million Marvel movies when you have a book like Cop Without a Badge that you could totally turn into a movie. I want to see who they will have play Beverly / Danielle. I think that would be good. Anyway, that is my breakdown of Danielle's part in Maher's story and what the infamous book really says about Danielle. If you liked today's video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in my next video. Laters. Bye.